and welcome to all of those who are joining us on the other screens of the screens, the side of the screens. My name is Neus Miró. I'm an art historian and curator based in Barcelona, and I'm really pleased to welcome to all of you to this second International ARCO e-talk. As you know, due to the COVID situation, ARCO set up this series of e-talks that started last November, and to enable, basically the idea is to enable us to continue building up a community around this art fair, and where we all can meet and support each other until, virtually, until we can all meet hopefully again in person at the beginning of July, when ARCO will take place again in Madrid from the 7th to the 11th of July. Each of these talks, as you know, revolves around a topic concerning the art galleries, their current situation and their future plans. The title for today's talk is Beyond the Show. The reasons for this talk, an important scheme out of the first international e-talk that I also lead, where the gallerists on that occasion were highlighting the relevance and importance of all the tasks that a gallery does, apart from its selling activity. For decades, and very much in periods such as the 60s or the 90s, and back again now, the commercial galleries have become sites where the most experimental art practices take place in the first place, can be developed and can be shown much before them being accepted by the public institutions and acquired, of course. Today, we shall address the commercial gallery as a site that does more than putting up shows and selling works. We will address all those other important tasks, events and activities that support artists and build up communities across with the different agents, collectors, curators, students and neighbors of the area where the gallery is set up, is located. Today we have with us to discuss these issues three gallerists, exceptional gallerists, whose galleries have become relevant for this approach beyond the show. So they do much more than just showing artists or selling the work. We have with us Ursula Krinzinger, Jèrôme Poggi, and Kiki Petato. As per the structure of the session, we can start with a brief introduction by each of you, into the gallerist, and of your non-exhibition activities, and then we're going to start the debate. For those who are following us online, please address your comments, questions by writing them on the tablet tag that says questions and comments at the bottom of the Zoom platform. And I shall collect all those questions and comments and address later to the panel. So thank you very much for joining us again. And I'll give the lead to Ursula for the presentation. Thank you, Ursula.
Hola, ¿qué tal? I'm very happy to be invited. I sit in the gallery, not in the residencies because of the COVID-19. It's so difficult. And behind me, referring to my topic, which is about the residencies, we do very consequently, besides the gallery business, if you want, it's really a non-profit situation. Mm-hmm. I sit in front of an exhibition of resident artists, former resident artists, Vienna, Croatia, and so on, and Sri Lanka. Christian Eisenberger. So I start, you wanted me to do an overview of the residencies, and I thought I have to go back quickly to the roots of the residency, which started...
Next slide.
Was it?
Next slide.
Mm-hmm. Which started in former Yugoslavia, where Marina Abramovic, whom I invited to Austria in 1975 to a performance. She had a residence there under Tito, and in Grozny, Istria, And she convinced me to have a house there, a former Austrian schoolhouse, where we, as a community, different artists came together from Yugoslavia, from Austria, all famous nowadays, have done biennials and everything. Marina Abramovic, Rasha Todosiewicz, Goran Tribuljak, Mladen Silinovic, Ernst Karamelle, Gottfried Bechtold. So it was between Austria and Croatia, former Yugoslavia. And we all stayed there, and it was a real residency from 75 to 82. So this was the roots. And I continued then in 202, next, 202, or in between, perhaps I go back to Croatia now. The next images could be, who muss ich next? Yeah, I continued then later in Croatia, where I was asked to continue. In 2016, I could, the family could purchase a former center, esoteric center, where part of it is now dedicated to residencies. And it is a meeting between Croatia and Austria, done together with the curators from Croatia and Austrian curators and artists. Now we come quickly, because I have to do quick, to be quick, I heard. These are now, I come back to the artists. You can see a long list since 2002, where it was possible, where we had good years. The good, better years started with the gallery. I have 50 years of gallery this year. And in 2002, I could find a fantastic space in another district, in the 7th district. This is part of it. And in the upper floor with a fantastic studio. The studio now is dedicated to residencies. We financed it from everything we could get from the gallery, from the business of the gallery. It's mainly financed by ourselves, which is very difficult, but I think it was so important because it was a total passion of mine to support younger artists from all over the world. We have artists from Asia to South America, whole Europe. If you see the list, it's enormous. This was very important. And one of the artists, that's why we show you, in 2006, he was not known at all at that time. I had discovered him from a small drawing shown at Erhard Gallery, Madrid, was Secundino Hernandez. And I mean, who is in the meantime a real superstar. So a lot of artists who in the meantime refer to this residence as a virginal situation, a paradise-like. They have a little apartment there, a huge studio, and after that they have exhibitions and little catalogs are printed, and then they go in the world, or it's a laboratory for us, and we choose artists also for the program of the gallery. We continue to help them to go into group exhibitions. And this was for me the only important thing I could give to the art community, because I was happy to survive in a fantastic way with the gallery. So you can see catalogs and different, I think you have also seen the air catalogs. And now we come, I soon finish, we come to Sri Lanka, which is really interesting that we have even a very exotic place where artists can go. Once or twice a year, we have an artist there. We are part of a foundation in Sri Lanka, where two Austrian friends have opened a huge school for children who are not able to to have the school system as they need. And besides, we have also a little studio and a house, and they can live there and really be in another world where colonial can be studied very well, the colonial system, or the different political situation of the country, and again, they form communities between them with artists from there or people from there. And I wanted to stress out that the artists who did residencies, they meet themselves, they help themselves to have exhibitions, to have their collectors. And it was a fantastic, and is still a fantastic experience for myself. So this is Hungary. I'm soon finished. Hungary. In Hungary, I found in long ago vineyard, these little wine houses where the wine farmers stayed during the harvest. And there it is somehow meeting between Austrian and Hungarian artists. Then they show there, and as you see that collectors and curators come, discuss with them on site. They have a little exhibition, and then everything comes to Vienna, and they get their little catalogs and are exposed. And it is, perhaps I did too much, but I came deeper and deeper into the residence idea, and I'm really thankful for it. And I think it's really exceptional. You wanted also shortly to see the Laser House. This is 3 years old. I bought a wine, very, very cheap. I find very cheap locations. And then I, outside, like in Hungary and here in Lower Austria. And a famous architect, Karl Bruscher, did the inside. And it's now a library of magazines, because I collected through my whole life international art magazines. I have hundreds and thousands of, so some of them are exposed there. And here you have, for example, a lecture of the most famous Austrian writer, Robert Menasse. And people sat there like one-to-one, very near. And in the moment during COVID, I couldn't do anything. We show artistic, we show art there, architecture, music, and different branches of artistic practice. Well, I did it now as quick as I could, and I'm prepared to go into discussion. And besides that, we have a huge gallery and participate in 12 to 14 fairs. And I think it has developed enormously, but now is COVID and we are frightened. But last year was it was okay. So I ran through it with all my enthusiasm I still have for this residency program, which really fulfills me, and not only the art market, which stresses me sometimes in reflections I have to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ursula. Thank you so much for the presentation. Next presentation will be by Jerome Bogey. He's a curator and art historian who founded its gallery in 2009, and which was initially located in the north of Paris and opened a second, then moved to in 2014, correct me if I'm wrong later, right beside the Centre Pompidou. In 2004, he also founded a non-profit organization called Societies to experiment new models of political economy for the arts. So he's here today to talk about those other activities apart from this activity. Jerome, it's all over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I hope you can all hear me well. So I entitled that presentation Art Not for Profit because I will tell you about that organization that is a non-profit organization, but I prefer to speak about not for profit as just to underline that profit is not the goal of what we are developing through the association and also through the gallery, and that profit, on the other hand, can be a mean to achieve our project. So next slide, please. So maybe I will start with a statement that might be found a little provocative to some of you, but just to say that most of us, gallerists, we are also curators, we are art critics, and I really truly think that the way I'm trying to do my job, that selling a work of art must be thought as a curatorial act. It's not only a financial act, this is not the final purpose, this is just a mean to be able to develop our activities. Before presenting the organization called Societies, I would like also to remind you that through our galleries, we are also very often organizing projects that are not for profit. Of course, we are organizing meetings and lectures and sometimes lessons in our galleries. That's what I think most of us do. We are also presenting a public project, and you will see on the next slide, for instance, a project that we did a few years ago. It was in parallel to the FIAC, the art fair in Paris. It's a project of Société Réaliste, so we called UN Camouflage, United Nations Camouflage. So we decorated a bridge over the Seine River in Paris with 300 flags, and each pattern was the camouflage of the flags of the countries member of the United Nations. And this was a project that was supposed not to be for profit, but finally we could sell it to a public museum in France, the Macval, next to Paris. So sometimes a project that is not supposed to be for profit can be profitable. But in other cases, also, we are really presenting projects that are totally non-profit. It was the case also in parallel to la FIAC, and it was quite provocative. It was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. It was a project by Yona Friedman called the Project for a Museum Without Building. And so you will see on the next slide that we created this kind of structure that is very characteristic from Yona Friedman, inviting people to hang pictures in this temporary and ephemeral structure that was contesting in a way the model of architecture in its classical meaning, but also the model of capitalism. So it was interesting to do that in the context of the FIAC, and this was really a work of art that was not for sale, that we never sold, and that is an example also of these not-for-profit project that we do. But I would like to present you more deeply what we are developing through the organization Societies, so that you will see on next slide. So this is just, I forgot to tell you also, it was an homage that we are paying to Yona Friedman, who disappeared 1 year ago. So we are dedicating 2 of our cabinets in the gallery to a project of Yona Friedman that is not for sale. So it is truly a real homage to Yona Friedman, reproducing the walls of his legendary living room in his apartment of Boulevard Garibaldi in Paris. So, well, another example of projects that are not for sale. So Societies is a non-profit or not-for-profit organization that I founded before opening the galleries. And at that time, I didn't know that I would create a galleries a few years later. I was an art historian, I was independent, I was an independent curator and art critic also at that time. And as many people, you know, I did create an association, an organization, non-profit in Paris, that was like a toolbox that enabled me to organize shows and make projects with artists. And little by little, but without wishing it, we started selling works of art of the artists we were working with. We were producing their works, and some collectors wanted to purchase them, or maybe sometimes some museums. So that's what encouraged me to create the gallery and to create a proper juridic structure to be an actor on the art market. But I kept on getting involved in that organization, societies, and we developed a program of the Fondation de France, that is a private foundation in France, called Les Nouveaux Commanditaires. In French, you could translate it, but it is not totally correct in English, as the new patrons. This is a very original project that was invented by an artist, François, who is an artist from Belgium, who defined a new political policy for the Fondation de France that had no policy before, that was very clear in regards to the art. And he proposed to create that new model of a cultural policy that was a policy of the offer, of the demand, not of the offer. And he created that program that is, I mean, just to make it short, we could say that it is a kind of democratization of an artistic commission. Artistic commission were always very important in the history of art. And it is only during the 19th century that, you know, the artist, in a very romantic conception, was felt as someone working alone in his studio, having no one to discuss with, and just creating a work of art that would answer an inside necessity, as Kandinsky says. But I mean, during the whole history of art, you could always find artists who were creating a work of art in dialogue with a commissioner. And François, it was in the early 90s, thought that until now, only rich people or people who had a kind of power, political power, religious power, or financial power, they were the only one who could commission an artist, a work of art that would answer an artistic mean. So how, in a democratic society, would it be possible to allow, you know, that possibility to make a dialogue with the artist to anyone through the society? So that's what he initiated. So the program allows anyone who wants, through the society, to initiate a public commission for art. I will give you two examples. So you will see on next slide, if it is possible. That was the very first commission that I did through societies. It was in 2007 that I started that project that lasted 5 years to get produced. I met by chance, he was living in the same building as mine, the director of the palliative care service of the hospital in Paris. And we spoke together, and I told him that I was involved in that program, Fondation de France, and that if they wanted, it would be possible for me to help them to bring art in their services. And he told me that, yes, indeed, they were really needing something that would symbolize, you know, the end of life or that notion of time in their services, and that they tried by themselves until now to create that link between time and reality in the service. But they couldn't do it well, and only an artist, to their eyes, would be able to really create a form that would embody that notion of time that is left, you know, when you are entering a palliative care service. So I went several times in this service to visit it and to meet with the medical staff and speak with them about the philosophy of the service. And they showed me that in each room they had a calendar that was an ephemeral calendar. You know, every day you take off a page and reveal the day after. That I found a little violent. It was like a countdown before, you know, the last day of your life. And I said, why do you have this kind of calendar in each room? And he said, because we do think that time is really what ties all of us together through society. And usually when you get hospitalized, you take off your watch and you do not have any more notion of time. So to their eyes, it was very important to remind to the patient, you know, what was the day of the week and what hours it was. Even though the shape they could find, you know, this kind of calendar was a little too violent to the eyes of the patient. And I said, well, I think this is there that you have an artistic mean. You're looking for someone, and only an artist can do that, to embody time in a work of art. And I thought of Mathieu Lehaneur, who is a French artist and designer, who proposed, but after a few months of reflection, to install in each room a screen that you can see here on the slide that would show the sky as it will be within 24 hours. It means that maybe within 24 hours, I won't be there anymore, but at least I would know what will be the sky above the head of my beloved, of my relatives. And so it took time for us to find the budget to produce that project. Of course, Fondation de France could give half of it, and then we had to find also the money that was left and needed with different patrons. So this is really a good example of a work of art that I think there is no curators who could think about such projects by themselves, if not listening to the need of the medical staff, and that allows, these works of art to find a way to appear. It means that the inside necessity of the artist is meeting with the outside necessity of the commissioner. And so it creates a space to allow work of art to appear. And it is much more easy to justify the apparition of contemporary art in a place that is not devoted to art as a hospital. I will give you another example, and only two examples because I'm trying to make it short, but you must know that more than 500 commissions were achieved during the last 30 years. The list of the artists is very impressive. I mean, the most important artists nowadays, but the list of the commissioners also is even more impressive. It's really people from any kind of community. I mean, homeless people or soccer players or butchers or doctors, teachers. I mean, anyone can apply and ask for a work of art, and we are trying to answer the need of society. And we truly think, we are convinced that nowadays the society, the whole society is able to express their own need for art. So for years, the public policies consisted of proposing art to people. It was the logic of offering art or culture by creating museums and theaters and etc., etc. But nowadays, I think we are entering a new phase of our democracy where people are able to be aware of their own artistic need and are aware also to express them to the artists. So maybe we can make a direct connection also between communities and the whole society with the artist. And the last project I will present is a project we did with Attila Csörgő. He's an artist represented by Gregor Podnar Gallery. And I'm underlining that because all the artists I'm working with through the non-profit societies are not artists from the gallery for deontological reasons. So we are collaborating with other galleries. So now the non-profit has two independent curators who are making the artistic choices. So I'm not doing the artistic choices. I'm now the president of the organization, leading the organization and negotiating also on a political level our partnership. And this is an example of a field that we are investing a lot. It is the university field. I am very much convinced that, at least in France, but also in any country, we are lacking art through our universities. We do need art in universities. That is really a tool absolutely necessary to understand the world where we are living nowadays. That is quite blurred, I must say. And I think the artists must also be present on the campuses of the universities. So we developed a program to make works of art appearing through commissions. It was the case at the University Paris 7 in Paris, and the commissioners were astrophysicists who wanted to embody, the object of their research in a work of art, because when they try to explain what they are working on a gravitational, how do you say, onde, on cosmic rays. And they wanted an artist to be able to embody different aspects of their research. And I thought of Attila Csörgő, who's an artist, also is working on these kind of things. And he created a work of art that is a light piece that you can see on the left, It's called squaring the circle. So you have a circle, and above the circle you have a bulb, and above the bulb there is a mirror that has the shape of a flower, and the shadow of the circle that you can see projected on the ground becomes a square. So he really succeeded in converting a circle into a square. That is something that the astrophysicists could not think it would be possible. So nowadays that work is installed in the heart of the laboratory and became really a place of speculation, but not financial speculation, because I think art also is a place of speculation, but more philosophical and intellectual speculation. And that work was also presented at the Documentine Castle before. So these are two examples of what we are doing, as I said, beyond the show, but I must say also beyond the market. And I think our role also as art dealers, as galleries, also is beyond the market, because we all have a kind of social responsibility due to our capacity of acting in the society. And so we must think of that social responsibility also and express it through projects that are not for profit, but who do not need profit to get achieved. So we must link everything all together.
Thank you so much, Jérôme. That was a great presentation. Thank you. Thank you so much. The next presentation will be by Kiki Petato. She's one of the founders, along with the collector Hans Bakker, of JOEY RAMONE in 2012. Apart from the gallery program, they have since 2016 an irregular site program where they collaborate with festivals, for instance, International Film Festival in Rotterdam and other festivals of poetry, and non-profit spaces as well, such as Playa and Warm. So I'll give you now the lead to Kiki. Just a reminder for all of those who are following us, you need, if you want to raise any questions or comments, you need to use the questions and comments tab rather than the chat, because the chat is closed to the public. So thank you very much for any questions you may raise. We'll collect them and take to our guests by the end. Thank you. So your turn, Kiki. Thank you so much.
Hello, thanks for the invitation, first of all. Well, I started my relation to art as an artist, and Hans, the other half of JOEY RAMONE, as a collector. And I think this this meeting also determined the way we proceeded. So we met in the middle and we became gallerists. So this kind of bridge, let's say, led us in a number of projects. One of the most important projects we worked, it was a non-profit called Attraction of the Opposites, which was examining the roles of that an art player could assume, like an artist, a curator, a gallerist, a producer, or all of the above in some occasions. During this initiative, we invited a number of international galleries in a setup of an exhibition and not an art fair. That is the usual place where many galleries meet. Then when we started the gallery, we had these questions in mind, this idea of role playing, or what the role of the gallerist could be and should be. Also, what being a commercial establishment entails, what are the limitations, what are the contradictions, if any. And exploring these questions, we felt like we had to somehow explore also different contexts, develop discourse, like become a meeting point where we could create different communities. And on the other hand, we were, of course, preoccupied with how we were going to increase our visibility as a gallery, how we are going to promote our artists the most, how we would exchange and circulate our ideas. So we started collaborating with a number of festivals. First with the International Film Festival Rotterdam, that's a long-lasting relationship, let's say, which gave us the opportunity, of course, to work within a specific theme, but also within a specific discipline, approaching it sometimes in a literal or more direct way, like film, or more associative. You can go through the next two slides. Like in the next slides, by organizing talks and screenings. Another festival that we like to work with is the Poetry International, because we find exciting the idea to work with the idea of language in relation to art and the other way around. And also that we had the opportunity to collaborate with word-based performers and poets. And this exchange really complemented conceptually and thematically both the gallery, the artists, but also of course, the performers. And besides that, we worked with a number of artist-run spaces and non-profit spaces. One of them was called, in the next slide, Conversas, which with them we organized a series of weekly talks and presentations, and we conclude with a publication. Another example was the collaboration with The Player. That's a sound and performance-based initiative. So we hosted an exhibition and we hosted performances, and we had plans for this year too, but unfortunately the COVID changed the plans. And the last example that I have is a collaboration we did with Roodkapje, which is like one of the biggest interdisciplinary initiatives in the Netherlands. And so we used both our spaces to curate a series of performances and exhibitions by the London-based collective, the Cult of Ramelzi. And this collaboration was really nice because we could also involve the public in a way that we organized a performance that was starting from the gallery, and as a procession, it walked through the city of Rotterdam, and it ended up in a third venue, the Worm, which is also like a very established sound, music, performance venue. And this exhibition or this collaboration gave us also the opportunity to go back thinking about the role of the gallerist, which, it's of course it's not restricted to the role of the organizer or the host or the curator, but in this case, also the role of the performer. In the image we see Hans performing like another William Burroughs, because of his physical appearance, he was like the best person for this role. And that's it for today.
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Kiki. Thank you so much. We shall start the debate now. And I have a question for all of you, which has been partially addressed. But just like you to reiterate the reasons how and why. I mean, very often you mentioned your personal interest, but beyond that, what was the need for you to set up these other activities? For instance, the residencies in the case of Ursula, or in the case of Jerome, these commissions, for instance, and the societies, and your relationship, Kiki, with the festival. What prompted you to do that in the first place? Was it the gallery activity, the normal, quote, the normal activity gallery, not enough? Was it a request from the community, something that you identified as a need? Anyone can answer? Okay, Jerome.
I think it was really addressed as a need. This was the first reason, because if you look up the list of the residencies we did, it's mainly young, very young and very young artists. And on the other side, it was also about the gallery community or the diploma I went to the diploma a lot all around and have seen the artists there, their necessity. They just did their diploma and there was nothing they could do afterwards. So we organized a residence for them, or even in one case, we organized a studio for 2 years because the artist, Rosemarie Lucas, she had studied with Helmut Zobenik, and she had a fantastic first-class diploma, and she was there, lost, with all her objects and sculptures she did. So we found her a studio, and in other cases, I think it was very much the need. And in the cases of the different countries, Yugoslavia, Hungary, and Sri Lanka, it is to put them, and they were very interested. We tried it, and then they saw it was so interesting to get with the community, with the normal people there, with the situation there, to integrate and to go further, much further into their life or into the communities, and to work with the knowledge they had there. But I think it was really, when I started, it was an absolute need. There were not many residencies and no gallery, almost no gallery in the 70s or even in 2000 had established residencies. And I'm still, if I wouldn't think it's still a need, I wouldn't continue. And I wanted to say, because at first I thought we have to be very, very short, so it was terrible. I had to run. You told me before that I have only 7 minutes, so it was a little difficult. I thought, but it is still people or artists, they have their total freedom. I had, for example, an Irish artist, Isabel Nolan. She asked me, can I just sit and think? So it's no need that they do something. They can do what they want. They can also go to walk through town, or they can do a journey. One did a journey to Budapest and stayed there. I mean, it's total freedom for younger artists when they start. So.
Thank you, Ursula. Thank you. Jerome wanted to address this question?
Yeah, the reason why I'm involved in that program is because I think my passion is just to share and to transmit art. And I've always wanted to have a gallery because in my eyes, a gallery is, in its architectural meaning, a gallery is a passage. It's a passage between two buildings. So it's like a bridge, but actually nowadays a gallery is quite a narrow bridge that very little people can use. And I'm not only speaking about the means you need to purchase a work of art, but also little people dare to visit a gallery, even though, I mean, we are free contemporary art centers, for instance. And so, I mean, for me, it was absolutely natural to try to enlarge that bridge and try to make connection, you know, with people who can be very far away from the cultural sphere. And the commissioners we are working with sometimes are people who never went to a museum. They don't know anything about art, but it is not because you don't know anything about art that you do not need art also. That's really what motivates my my involvement, and that's why also to my eyes it is the same job in a way, just to be a passeur, to be able to transmit art to as widely as possible. And not to, and also, yes, I would like to stress that when you are commissioning a work of art, you are not passive, you're not a spectators. You're also participating to the economy of the work of art. That is very important. This is what a collector can do when he has the means to purchase a work of art. You know, it's a kind of joint venture also with the artist. But people who do not have money, they can also make this kind of joint venture. And if we can find, you know, financial means somewhere else through art patrons. But I think this is the biggest pleasure and the biggest benefit to be able to participate so to the apparition of a work of art.
Thank you. And Kiki?
Yes, I want to say that we wanted actually to challenge the idea of commerciality, because sometimes it brings a negative connotation to it. people think, I don't know, that the gallery is the black sheep of the artwork sometimes, and we want to change this idea. So we thought by working with non-profits, or we having our own non-profit and our own project space, and by collaborating with festivals that they have a totally different scope, we prove that, yeah, we are not just, I don't know, cold merchants. We don't sell a sack of potatoes, let's say, but we don't sell products, but there's a bigger story behind what we are doing. It's more effective, I believe.
Thank you, all of you. I just got quite a few questions from the public. There's one for Jerome. There's quite a few for Jerome. Right. Since you have an international presence through fairs and your artists, do you have any plan to extend the activities of societies out of France, collaborating with colleague galleries in Europe or wherever?
Well, first, I must yes, you can hear me. I must precise that I'm not the only one, developing the Nouveau Commanditaire, New Patrons program. We are a community of mediators in France. We are something like 15 mediators developing that program. So I'm not the inventor, I'm not the patron, I'm really working for someone. And that program was developed all through the world, actually, for the last 30 years, and especially in Europe, and in particular in Spain, where you have Spanish mediators in Madrid, and also in Barcelona, you had some also who are developing that project. In Germany also, the project is very much developed. And there is another art dealer, Alexander Koch, from KOW Kov Gallery in Berlin, who is very much involved in that program. He's the president of the German Association of Mediators for the New Patrons program also. So it's rather well developed also in Italy and in Switzerland with Charlotte Lebar and all throughout the world.
Okay, there's another one for Ursula. There's someone who like to know how do you select the artists for the residencies? How can someone apply for one residency, for instance? That's an artist who, I guess that's an artist who's in the public.
There are different possibilities. When I started it, it was through an artist that we did the first in former Yugoslavia. And later it was a mixture because working with gallery friends or gallery colleagues who had an artist. They were thinking, this is a very young artist and I would like to participate with another gallery, the interest or how it develops. That was a second thing, because as I finance it myself, or the gallery is financing it out of profit, or did it to do it out of profit, we really did it very personally. Then also, of course, if artists can approach, and there's a little jury of us who decide whether it fits the whole idea of these residencies. There are different aspects, and the diploma, of course, I mentioned it already. I go diplomas wherever we can, or galleries, or on art fairs. There's always a very young non-profit section somewhere. I study it, and that's how we found the Pakistani artist who is now really developing incredibly, Waqas Khan, and that's how we do it. But on the same time, they have become a community, and they recommend their friends. They estimate a lot. So it's a whole universe that has developed in recommending and putting in front of me to decide with the little jury whom we are taking. So it's very wide, and everybody can, of course, apply.
Okay, so we encourage whoever is in the artist in the audience to apply for. There's one for Kiki. There's another one for Kiki. How is it possible to be part of or collaborating in the Poetry International? It looks fantastic. Thank you.
Well, they had for a very long time this program that was called Art and Language Gallery Tour, and we were very open to collaborate with them. The thing is, we work together. They work with a selection of poets, and we work with a selection of artists, and then we put together this combination. We see which work fits to which poet or performer, and we work together.
Right. Okay. There's another one for Jerome. It asks about the contemporary, to show contemporary art works in universities. The works commissioned for universities, how do you choose a location? Is decided at the beginning or as the idea develops?
Well, it is the purpose of a commission. The starting point is really the expression of a need, of a context, and then after we choose the artist, and then the artist propose the work of art. So sometimes the need can concern a specific place, but sometimes it doesn't. For instance, I remember meeting an association of students, of alumni, and they wanted to commission to an artist a work that would embody their association. And so finally, we proposed to work with Claude Kloski, working with the Galerie Gaudin in Paris. And he proposed to create a website, for instance. But it was not, at the beginning, it could have been a sculpture, something, just an object, you know, that would embody their community. But finally, it was a website. So no, this is really the final point, I would say, even though sometimes the need really concerns a specific location.
I have also another questions for you, Jerome, about the commissions for the hospital, you know, that you showed, I think one case. What was the reaction of the patients?
Well, sometimes, you know, when you enter a palliative care service, you know, you don't really know what's happening. So it can be a little dizzy for this person. So at the beginning, the screen in the room is off. And sometimes it takes time for people to get aware that there is an object that is, you don't know why it is here. And then it allows people to start speaking about tomorrow. What is very difficult, because most of the time when you visit someone in a palliative care service, you don't know what to say. You cannot say, hey, what are you going to do for holidays? Or you can even say, how are you? Because you know that this person is not doing well. Yeah. So there is very little thing you can say. So most of the time you look outside through the window, you say, oh, it's sunny today, or it's rainy. And you speak about, you know, in French, it is the same word to say le temps. I mean, the meteorological time, weather is temps, and it is also for length, so time. And so you speak about time, you know, when you are looking through the window. And then that object allows you to project yourself not very far, but at least tomorrow. And so then it allows a dialogue, you know, that at the beginning is even impossible sometimes.
Also like to ask you, Ursula, about because the residencies you've set up, they are, you know, Croatia and Sri Lanka. Also like to know about the reaction of the people living there to the residencies, to the artists coming there to do work, or just, you know, to prepare work or pre-production or production. How is the community there reacting to these residencies?
I mean, you address something which is very important for all of us doing these residencies, artists, curators who help, and myself, because in these countries you mentioned, they mix with the people. They have helpers. For example, in Hungary, there is a couple who, since the beginning, work with them. They love it. They wait for the artist to come, and the whole surrounding is helping them bringing production in the Eastern countries like Hungary. In the moment, it's a terrible, it's a very difficult situation, let's say. So the artists have not a lot of possibilities, and in this little, it's a no man's land. A very poor area, and the people are really contacting them almost every day, and they work with the people. And it's similar in Sri Lanka, where it is a resort and on the same time a foundation for this incredible project of school. So they can work with the school or with the people in the country, with the normal people in the country who want to know more about it, even want to work with them. And I think the integration is very much interesting in these very special countries. That's why we are doing it. And we are so near to the east here in Vienna. And I think it's especially for Croatia and Hungary perhaps in the moment much more, where you have really this important dialogue with everybody there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There's another question from the public addressed to all of you and or whoever wants to answer. When choosing an artist, both for residency or gallery shows or commission, how do you balance experience versus the actual artistic work? So, yeah, how do you balance that experience of the entire community and the artist and yourself with the artistic or the artwork that result from that residency or from that commission or from that experience?
Ich verstehe das nicht.
Jerome?
I'm sorry, I was answering someone, and
writing. Oh, right, okay.
Answers. I'm sorry, I was not very much concentrated, but it was for a good reason. I was answering someone who was asking if there is any mediator in the Netherlands, but actually a very active mediator in Belgium, working in the Flemish part of Belgium. But from what I know, there is no mediator in the Netherlands. So sorry, I didn't listen to...
Right. It's just someone saying that how do you choose an artist for residency or for commission in your case, for instance, or to show in the gallery in the case of Kiki, along with the festival, how do you balance the experience versus the artistic result?
But I'm not sure I understood the question very well.
Right.
I did not understand.
Very difficult.
Yes. How do you balance the residence, for instance, in your case, Ursula, versus the artistic result, or you don't take into account that artistic result to choose an artist for a residence?
Well, as for me, I can answer very quickly because I'm not the artist anymore, personally, because we have an independent team of curators, so I'm not choosing the artist myself.
Right. Okay, so now I have a final question for all of you. Is that how an art fair like ARCO would contribute or would help to what you're doing in terms of what you expect from an art fair like ARCO to contribute to that kind of non-selling activities, which is something that art fairs have incorporated for a long time, like the talks and performances, but how would you envision their future actions, if any? What would you recommend?
Well, I think, the talks, are always very important, especially in ARCO, where you have such a passionate program of, meetings that all around it, and you are inviting so many curators. So I think these talks are very interesting. And I think, I cannot remember, maybe we already did one with Julia Morandeira, for instance, or Manuel Segade also, who is developing the new patrons program through El Dos de Mayo.
Yes.
Working with the Foundation Daniel and Nina Carasso in Madrid. But also, I know that some fairs, sometimes they can dedicate booth to a non-profit organization. So maybe it could be also a solution, because people who are wandering all around, sometimes you have visitors who are not collectors, and just to let them know that there are other ways to get involved in the economy of a work of art, the political economy of a work of art, that would be nice. So why not, having a booth to invite, the Spanish mediators and the European mediators also to present, that possibility to get involved differently beyond the market. A suggestion.
Yeah.
I'm totally of this opinion. I think that the fairs in general should think a lot about this non-commercial part. I think this would give a very important new idea of understanding to collectors who, and public, general public, and specialized public, what galleries are able to do, what younger artists need, that it's not always a market, and talks about it, lectures about it, dialogues, and perhaps also presentations of, I don't know how to visualize all these ideas, but somebody could have a great artistic idea or a great idea to make this field visible, because it's on fairs, it's not visible. Perhaps later when the artists, as some of the artists we have as residents later join the gallery, because we follow them, we help them, and then we see it's really interesting for us. But all the others and all the other tools we use, it would be interesting if I think we are different, but we have one thread that goes through these three beyond the gallery projects. So it could be interesting if a fair takes care of this, and another presentation, another sort of presentation, it would open the mind or the view of commercial galleries a lot. And I think perhaps fairs should think about it.
You, Kiki?
I think ARCO already does this
Partly.
partly, for example, with the special projects that they invite galleries to present a project like an installation, something that can stand on its own. So I think it happens already, but it can be improved, right? It can gain a bigger scale, for example, to make it more clear that, okay, you don't present two objects, but you present a bigger idea behind.
Activity, you present activity.
Activity, performance, it could include anything.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. It's been really good to have talked with you, and we've been having a lot of questions. We cannot take any more questions or comments, but thank you very much for these talks and your presentations. That's been great. So thank you, all of you. Thank you, Kiki, Ursula, and Jerome. Thank you. And thank you. And I employ the audience to the next e-talk. So thank you very much for joining us, and see you very soon. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.